So thank you very much for coming to our first bullying and harassment parent training. We're very excited to be here. I have two amazing counselors with me, and we will introduce ourselves as we get started. So let me go on to the next slide. Ms. Zavala, do you want to get started?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for choosing to spend your evening with us tonight. I know we're competing with the Dodger game, so thank you for tuning in. I'm Beatriz Zavala, elementary school counselor for both Laurel Magnet Elementary School as well as Brea Online Academy. I'm also a BOUSD parent myself, and I just feel very lucky to be able to serve the community that I live in.
Thank you so much. Ms. Townsend, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you. My name is Arianna Townsend. My students call me Miss T, and I am the elementary school counselor at Country Hills. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Alejandra Velez. I am the new Administrative Director of Special Education and Student Services. I started about a month and a half ago. 20 years of experience doing this work, special education and student services. And I'm super excited today to be able to spend the evening with you to talk about this very important subject. So we're going to talk about four things. Our objectives today are you as families will be able to understand the definition of bullying and harassment, understand the difference between bullying and conflict. Families will learn proactive strategies to support students at home, and families will learn how to appropriately intervene, including when and how to escalate concerns to school officials. I'm actually going to take a pause. Josh, can the participants put things in the chat?
Yes, the chat is open.
Great. Before I continue, I want to ask how many of you need this translated to Spanish. Entonces, antes de proceder, lo que quiero preguntar es, ¿cuántos de ustedes necesitan que le traduzcamos esta presentación al español? Si puede poner en el chat. No need. Thank you, Natalia, for replying. Anybody else? ¿Alguien más? Si se necesita traducir al español, queremos asegurarnos de que esta información tan importante sea escuchada por todos los padres. Okay. La comunicación va directamente a las personas que están llevando la reunión. Okay. So it seems like everybody's comfortable with English. All right, wonderful. So let's continue. So who's in our audience? Where are we? So on a scale of 1 to 4, what is your knowledge about bullying? Like, what is your, if you were to say I'm very knowledgeable, you would mark a 4. If you were to say I don't know a lot, I would mark a 1. 3, I see a 3, very good. A 4, a 2, a 3. Great, 3. Great. This is great. So we hopefully, when you walk out of this presentation today, you will walk out with resources that will be able to empower you as a parent to support your students and really collaborate with the district. And if you learn something, we definitely, we say we've been successful today. So let's get this party started.
So when we look at the definition of bullying, it seemed like I saw a lot of 3s and 4s. And so this might be information that's already known, but we want to start off with that foundation. So the definition of bullying is a person who hurts a person either through words or actions on purpose. And in order for something to be considered bullying, these 3 areas must occur. It must be repeated, targeted, or on purpose, and a clear imbalance of power. And so if just 1 or 2 of these situations are happening, it is not considered bullying. All 3 of these bullet points must occur. Some examples of bullying might be name calling, spreading of rumors, physical aggression, or even excluding someone from a group. And we'll be talking about how those are categorized in the next slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And again, it must fit the 3 criteria: repeated, targeted, or on purpose, and an imbalance of power when it comes to like the examples and any kind of situation that might be categorized as bullying.
Okay, thank you. So bullying can be categorized into 4 major areas. We have our verbal bullying, when bad words or verbal abuse is being used to harm another person, such as cursing, threatening, and verbal violence. We also have physical bullying, which I think when we think of bullying, that's probably the first one we think of. And it includes the use of touching, hitting, and other physical actions to harm a specific person. We also have social bullying, as it relates to isolating a person from others or excluding them from social activities or friendships. And the last one, cyberbullying, as kids become older and busier and they need that phone to communicate with home, we do see that rise of cyberbullying, which occurs through social media and electronic messages, including sending threatening or harassing messages, or just publishing private information without permission. That's me again. So understanding the causes and the impact of bullying is the first step toward creating a safer and more supportive school environment for all students, including a student who might be exhibiting bullying behavior. And while these possible causes, I just want to make sure we understand that they do not excuse bullying behavior, but they can help us understand the potential root causes. And as school counselors, this is really important for us because we're able to provide meaningful support to both the student that is being bullied and the bully as well. And so for parents and caregivers dealing with a child at home that might be exhibiting bullying behavior, it's also helpful to understand where this behavior may be stemming from, to understand how to best support at home as well. So we have possible causes, there's differences or discrimination where bullying can be a result of a difference in appearance or social or national origin, or even difference in interest. Social pressures, where some students may feel pressured by friends and peers to participate in bullying and their way to fit in. Academic success or failure, where bullying may be a result of a jealousy over academic success or failure of others. Personal problems, where bullying may be the result of just personal problems going on at home or in their personal life, and the person doing the bullying, including being bullied at home sometimes. So also lack of awareness and education. Sometimes children may be unaware of the damage, especially kind of like our younger ones, might be unaware of the damage that can result from bullying due to just the lack of awareness of the seriousness of this. And media influence. Bullying may be also inspired by what's being watched, like violence in the media or electronic games or electronic devices.
So as we mentioned before, in order to be bullying, it has to fit 3 criteria. And usually when we look at an incident, the fact that it happened doesn't mean that it's not important and that it needs to be addressed. But in order for it to be bullying, it has to go through the process. Number 1, as administrators, we look at, was it a possible crime? And if the answer is yes, then we definitely contact law enforcement. We notify parents. And then we look at it, was there aggression? These are the 3 characteristics of bullying. Number 1, was there aggression? And if the answer is no, then it's definitely not bullying, but it is a conflict. It's an incident that occurred that also needs to be addressed by conferencing with the students, calling home. It doesn't mean that we don't address it. And then for bullying, we also look at question number 2, was there dominance? Was the aggressor stronger or dominant over the other? Was one side outnumbered? And that can be in size, it can be in grade level, it can be social power. And then the third question that really makes it fit into bullying, was there persistence? Did the person continue to bother the other student, continue to be an aggressor after they were asked to stop? So we have to look at evidence for the repeated problem. If there wasn't persistence, then it is not bullying. It still needs to be addressed. And if the answer to the 3 questions is yes, these are some of the things that can happen. Then you discipline aggressor for bullying based on seriousness and persistence of the behavior. We always use educational code to address behavior and to discipline students. We counsel students, as Ms. Zavala mentioned. If it's possible to do a resolution or a mediation between the students, we may do that. We can do a restorative circle if that is appropriate. What could you do to keep from happening? So we always go through those questions and making sure that both the bully understands the consequences if it continues, and the victim really understands that there's a support system for them to be able to get support if it were to happen again, so that we are notified and we can continue to support.
So in this slide, we are going to be talking about the difference between conflicts and bullying. So when we take a look at a conflict, this is a disagreement generally between 2 or more people. So there is a clear difference of opinion, whether if that's based on perspectives and or experiences that the people involved have witnessed or occurred. And the goal of a conflict is really to have that awareness and being able to intervene by making that situation or that conflict that occurred better, not bigger. And so we really want to make sure that we are de-escalating rather than escalating that situation. And so when we bring both parties together, when both have agreed, and we'll talk more about this in restorative practices later on, but we are really focusing on what types of solutions can we create together to resolve the situation, to make sure that we are mitigating it and de-escalating it. And then if you can click forward so we can look at what bullying contains. And so as we shared in previous slides, whether it was a flow chart or when we shared about the definition of bullying, these 3 areas must occur in order for it to be considered bullying. So if just 1 or 2 of the situations occur, chances are it is a conflict and not bullying. And so we're going to talk in the future slides on how we can combat bullying a little bit more, but really making sure we have a clear understanding of what that situation is and utilizing that flow chart if needed.
And very similar, but different is the concept of harassment. Our definition of harassment that we're using tonight is unwelcome conduct based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, disability, or other protected characteristics. So in schools, harassment often involves targeted harmful actions that create a hostile environment for others. For example, sexual comments, racial slurs, unwanted touching, or repeated taunting.
So again, bullying is about power and repetition, while harassment involves targeting a specific characteristic. They're closely related and different. So the next is going to be, we're going to be talking about education code and restorative practices when it comes to addressing bullying, harassment, including conflict, I would say here. The piece about education code, every time that administrators meet with students for any kind of behavior, including bullying, harassment, and conflict, we always rely on education code. And part of the education code really guides us as to what offenses can be suspendable, can be a recommendation for expulsion, and what can we do also to support the students. And Education Code 48900.5B really specifies that if it's not a mandatory recommendation for expulsion, we have to use other means of correction that include but are not limited. And I put a couple that are under this education code that include a referral to school counselor, to psychologist, to social worker, to study teams, guidance teams, to provide interventions that are addressing the reason, the root cause that Ms. Zavala addressed in prior slides, to support the student, the student that's the aggressor, and obviously to support the victim. Participation in restorative justice programs, and we'll talk a little bit more about that piece, and obviously providing positive behavior support approach with tier interventions that occur during the school day on campus. And the reason why this ed code is in place is because we understand that kids are learning. And some kids may need more supports, but at the end of the day, it is the job of the educator, the educational system, in collaboration with the families, to really grow our students so that they can become productive citizens. Because once they go into society, they will encounter conflict, they will encounter certain issues. So we want to make sure that whether it is the bully that we're supporting to change the behavior, and also supporting the victim in making sure that it stops and that they get the support necessary, that our end goal is that our students are productive citizens once they walk out of our schools.
So as we move into restorative practices, this is a practice that us as school counselors that we do utilize on a daily basis, especially when we are trying to restore that harm that is being done, whether if it is from a conflict and or a bullying situation. So when we take a look at these three areas, approach, goal, and focus, we'll go ahead and dive a little bit more into them. When we take a look at approach, we are really focusing on, as school counselors, we are using restorative practices to really understand what is happening. So allowing students to share each of their perspectives from their point of view on that situation that has occurred, and being able to promote that accountability, empathy, and healing by having this conversation that is reflective. The goal of restorative practices is being able to focus not solely on that punishment, on this is your consequence because of what has happened. However, it's aimed to restore that harm that's been done. So we're looking at it as a reflective practice, being able to hopefully make sure that we're mitigating future situations so that they are not continuing. And so we are trying to build those stronger relationships, not only amongst our students, but within our community and amongst each other on our campuses, so we can have that safe school environment. When I'm working with students, I like to use this phrase, the person is not the problem is the problem. When we take a look at the person being the problem, that's where that blame and those fingers being pointed at this person versus that person did that. But when we take a step back and we really focus at what the problem is, we're looking at that root cause, so we can create those solutions moving forward.
I love that piece. The person is not the problem, but the problem is the problem, because it really allows for us as human beings to be okay with messing up and taking accountability for our actions, so that in the future we can change and even start over. Like, tomorrow's a new day, and tomorrow you can start over as a new person, rather than, you know, in the long run, we don't want students to walk out of school and say, this is the person that I am the problem that has always occurred, and I always been characterized as such. So we want to always, in any kind of situation, approach as much as possible the root cause of the problem in a restorative manner, where we're teaching students why their actions are wrong and how they can make the situation better.
Thank you. And so we talk about embedding restorative practices within the school culture and everyday practice. This, as Ms. T was commenting, this helps build a positive school climate that promotes conflict resolution and repairing that harm by focusing on building those relationships and addressing the root causes of the behavior. And I really have to give also credit, and I know as school counselors, we use this on a daily basis, but I also want to give credit to our teachers, that many of our teachers also utilize a restorative approach and handling conflicts that happen within their classroom. And so I feel like it's a really it's a really empowering technique or type of dialogue that gets utilized school wide, so that students are kind of hearing that questioning when a conflict and or bullying situation arises, and it just becomes part of their daily language. And so we have kids at my school at this point, they're like, oh, can we do a circle again? Circle time, they need a circle again because something might have happened. And so I'm really enjoying that, to seeing that process of how it's really grown within the school. So it really gets to addressing the root causes of the behavior, that rather than just the consequences alone. By creating a more inclusive and supportive learning environment for students, this inevitably will lead to improved student behavior, reduced disciplinary issues, and just a greater sense of belonging and pride within that school community. In addition, I do want to add that aside from restorative practices, school counselors, we also provide classroom lessons, either classroom and or grade level theme lessons on topics such as bully prevention, so that all students are learning about this topic and are given that opportunity to practice some of these tools and coping strategies that we're going to go over in a couple slides. And so here you're looking at a kind of a typical line of questioning when having a restorative conversation between two or more students. It's just as important as the restorative conversation itself, and giving the opportunity for the student exhibiting bullying behavior to tell their kind of perspective, and having the victim tell their perspective and how they felt and what would make it right. I think it's just as important that as a follow-up that we do check in as school counselors and teachers and staff, we do check in with both sides to make sure that they're keeping up with the agreements that they agreed that they were going to follow.
Thank you for putting these questions up. And, again, restorative dialogues can happen with bullying, harassment, even conflict. And they're great questions that you can also use at home to support your students, even if there's conflict between siblings, or if there's something that is happening between parents and the students. So they're great questions to really strengthen relationships even at home.
So as shared in the previous slide, we heard some questions and we have some more questions here as well. But before we get to the questions, we really want to take a look about how can we continue having those conversations and supporting your child at home. And here are some suggestions. So first off is listening carefully, being able to get all the facts and details and being able to hold that space and listen first. So being able to seek first before to understand, right? Rather than talking over or interrupting, making sure you're holding that space that they can be able to share everything. And then you're able to clarify the situation. That's when those questions shared on the last slide or on the right-hand side of the slide, we can ask to gather more information or to understand better. And after we clarify, you're able to reassure your child, to let them know, like, thank you so much for letting me know about what is happening, or I appreciate you being open with me. Let's go ahead and create a plan to move forward so we can address this or de-escalate that situation. And it's also important that you're documenting all these different situations that are happening. When you document, it allows to paint a picture of what is happening. Maybe there's an aha moment in there where you can see maybe a trend or a pattern. Maybe it's having an easier way when you do engage the school so that all of those ducks are in a row already, and that there is a clear record of the different incidents that have already been taken place, along with any of those solutions that you've shared with your child or that you've came up with together. And then lastly, being able to have those frequent technology checks. Most of our students have some form of access or their own electronic device. So it's important that going through those devices to monitor, whether if it's through video games, social media, text messages, group messages, because a lot of times these situations might start off as a difference of opinion or conflict, as we shared earlier. And instead of them being de-escalated, they tend to escalate because there isn't those frequent technology checks. And so sometimes it might be seen as an invasion of privacy, but approaching it as this is a responsibility that having technology is earned, that it's not something that you're just given. And so some questions that you might look at might be, how can I help you? What have you already tried to make the situation better? How many times has this situation happened? Why do you think the situation happened or occurred? Or did you ask help from any other trusted adults around you? So these are just some key questions that you could help, and making sure that the questions are open-ended, meaning that it allows your student or your child to share the most information and provide those details rather than a close-ended question where it's like a yes or no answer. So making sure we're allowing them that room to talk, as we talked in that first bullet point of listening carefully. Thank you.
And as we continue that conversation about as at home, how do we support our students at home? Kind of to continue with that same conversation, if we take a step back and think about how we can take a proactive approach to tackle bullying, or be prepared just to know when to kind of step in and ask those questions, it's really through those daily kind of conversations that we have with our students, with our kids, to strengthen those relationships. It starts with fostering that open communication, that open-ended questions, and those daily interactions when we pick them up from school at dinner time. And so that when the challenge does arise and we do notice kind of a difference in their behavior, we see something is going on, or they share with us, that trust has been established and that you're able to address any issues with bullying immediately, and communicate that with the school. And having said that, how do we, with our children, how do we bring up that topic of bullying when we suspect that it's going on? How do we ask about bullying without directly asking about bullying, right? So one way to bring up our concerns with our kids is when we notice changes in behavior, changes in habits in our children, and it's to kind of just name what we're seeing, name those changes that we noticed out loud in a conversation with them, and that would be an invitation to have that conversation. So saying things like, I've noticed that you seem stressed and anxious and upset. Has anything happened? I've noticed that you're spending more time alone, or really more time in your room on your phone. Is there anything you'd like to talk about? Is there something going on at school that might be upsetting you? I've noticed that you don't talk about your friends as much anymore. Has anything happened? Or simply, as I'm here for you if there's anything you want to talk about. And and that will open the kind of like the lines of communication, and really, like Miss T was mentioning, like that will give him kind of the open door to really share what's going on.
And so as we move forward into what a upstander versus a bystander is, it's really important to have a clear understanding of this as an adult so we can be able to inform and educate our children and our students about what that looks like. And so when we take a look at what a bystander is, that is a passive observer. So you're witnessing a situation happening, and we're just letting it happen. We're not saying or doing anything to help, that we are just letting it occur. And so, whereas an upstander is the opposite. So, we are being proactive or assertive in those actions or support that we're having towards the victim or victims in the situation. So, that person being bullied. And so, some situations or suggestions might be maybe speaking up or getting help from an adult, showing kindness to that person who is being targeted, or being able to show that we refuse and we're not going to engage or further that conversation of what might be happening, whether if it is in person or through a text message thread. And so some things that we can reinforce at home. The first one is modeling empathy. This is something that we talk and practice at our school sites, especially at the elementary level. We talk about this when we go into the classrooms. What does empathy look like? And so when we're able to model not only at school, but also at home, what empathy looks like, it allows our students to naturally start to do that as well. So knowing how they can understand how someone might be feeling when maybe somebody's feelings got hurt, or when a situation was a lot bigger than they could handle or manage on their own. And then going into role playing. So practicing different situations or scenarios to have a clear understanding before a situation might happen. So another proactive approach, being able to show how you could intervene or report those incidents of bullying if they were to happen. So your child already knows how to move forward without having to feel like, I don't know what to do. And then lastly, is being able to discuss those values. So being able to show that respect, that kindness, and standing up for others as a regular part of those family conversations, whether if it's in the car rides, after sports or extracurriculars, at pickup, dismissal, dinner time, wherever it might be. Being able to understand what are those things that you want your child to do when they step outside of your home, or when they're interacting with friends, classmates, or whomever it might be. So the key takeaway here is being able to encourage our children to be a part of the solution and stepping in and seeking help when we see a bullying situation happen.
Okay, I think this is my favorite slide. So we also want to share some additional resources. Let's talk resources, visuals, verbiage that we can practice at home. We want to share some additional resources on how to help equip your student with words, concrete steps, like Ms. T was mentioning, and tips on how to be an upstander that you can practice at home, but still be safe about it. So we added a little Ned video. This is one that was shown to some of the classrooms as part of like the bullying prevention lessons. And that's a really kind of straightforward, giving 4 tips for students on how to be an upstander. Being a buddy to someone, kind of interrupting that interaction, that bullying interaction, and taking a friend away to go play somewhere else, speaking out, which it's a little harder to do, but it can be done on the right hand side are some ways to speak out, like some verbiage or a worksheet with some ideas on how to speak out. And also the 4th one is really important. Tell a trusted adult on campus, so that we can also help out. And it's presented in a really fun, understandable way. So along with that, we also included a handy tool, a little acronym at the bottom, with THINK, standing for think, that quite frankly is a great tool for both kids and adults, right? So the hope is that that at the moment where either you want to respond back or not sure what to say, or maybe your student is upset and wants to be able to avoid a conflict, the THINK is a great way to kind of like think about what you're thinking about before saying it, right? So making sure that it's true, that it's helpful, that it's inspiring, that it's kind, and so that helps with avoiding some conflicts that might come up. And again, at the very, very right, there's another little visual there on like just different steps on how to approach an adult for help when there might be like some bullying behavior that the student is dealing with, or a conflict.
I think we might have time to show the video. Would you like me to share it?
Yeah.
Okay, give me a second. Let me make sure I'm sharing audio. Okay.
I should have linked it.
Hi there! My name is Zed the Squarehead, and I know that there's a champion in every kid. Big kids, small kids, two-eyed, three-eyed, four-eyed kids, doesn't matter. There's definitely a champion in all kids, but sometimes we forget that. Sometimes a kid will try to feel cool or strong by choosing to be mean to those who are smaller or weaker than them. They might pick on people who can't do or say anything back. They might do it over and over too. Have you ever seen that happen? Well, that kind of behavior is called bullying, and it's not cool. But you can do something to stop bullying as it's happening. If you know a few tricks, then you can actually choose to stop the meanness right in its tracks. You can choose to stand up to bullying, and you can be an upstander. Pay close attention to this scene. Here's the playground, and here's the bully who's trying to feel cool by picking on this guy, Tar. Now here's a bystander. A bystander is someone that sees bullying happen and doesn't know what to do. And back here, we have Ned. Ned's going to start off a bystander, but when the bullying starts, he does know what to do. He's going to choose to be an upstander. Ned's going to stand up to bullying. And when he does, he chooses from 4 upstanding options. 1, be a buddy. When Ned sees Tar getting bullied, he shows Tar that he has a friend. Bullies aren't used to their targets having a buddy. It could change everything. 2, interrupt. When the bullying starts, Ned finds a way to interrupt. Here, he interrupts by asking Tar to come and join him at the electroball hoop. When Ned interrupts, he gives Tar a reason to walk away from the problem. 3, speak out. This one takes tons of courage. Here, Ned faces the person who is bullying and says, "That's mean. Don't do that." By speaking out about what is happening, it shows that meanness is not welcome. It also gets other people to look, and they might join as upstanders too. 4, tell someone. Whether it's during the bullying or after it, Ned's going to choose to tell an adult about it. This is not tattling because he's not trying to get someone in trouble. He wants to keep someone safe. It takes courage and hard work to be an upstander. But by being an upstander, you'll be an awesome friend to someone when they need it most. And the letters in Ned's name can help. N. Never give up on helping your school to be safe. E. Encourage others to be upstanders with you. D. Do your best with all the upstanding ways that you can use to stop bullying at your school. If you know the N, E, and D in Ned's name, you'll probably choose to be upstanding whenever you see bullying. When bullying takes place, you'll make a champion choice to be a buddy, or interrupt, or speak out, and also tell someone. If you do any mixture of those things when you see bullying happen, you'll go from being a bystander to being an upstander at your school.
Thank you. Thank you for showing that. It's pretty short. As you can see, it's understandable. I've used it with second grade all the way to even like 5th and 6th will watch, and we can still pull that information from there and then really think about what does that mean for our school. So it's good. There's some resources for you.
Yes, and even if you look at when you look at YouTube, there's also other resources that are appropriate for older kids. So there's a lot of resources that you can use. And if you don't know what to use, especially for the middle and high school students, definitely there's always a counselor on campus that can provide you to the appropriate resource. So the topic that is talked about, especially nowadays, is parental controls and technology. There's actually a lot of resources that are coming out, and I'll start from the bottom up. So these are all links to resources that you can access that really talk about technologies and the impact of technology that it has on our students from such a young age, and the impact that it has had One of the things that, top of mind that really comes up is anxiety. It's creating a lot of anxiety and for students specifically, more so than boys to girls. So it's really important that as parents, we are knowledgeable of the research that is currently coming out and how to control the use of technology for our students, for our kids. So always set up privacy settings and parental controls on device and apps. And if you don't know how to do it, I'm sure that if you go to Verizon or the Apple Store, they'll teach you how to do it. The counselors may also have experience in how to do it, so they can be a support, and if they don't know, they'll definitely refer you to someone that does. Regularly check and discuss your child's online activity and behavior. Set limits, especially limits to social media. There's more and more research that is coming up that is saying to consider 16 and older for access to social media. Explain the limiting social media use isn't about control. It's really about protecting mental health, because there's a clear link between mental health and the use of social media. Managing fear and blocking or reporting. It's okay to block or report people who are bullying or harassing them online. That is okay. So making sure that that open communication is there with your child. If you are concerned and you don't know how to talk to your child, or you're afraid of, messing up, because we're always, as a parent myself, we're always afraid of this piece, talk to someone at the school. We're always there to help. And encourage responsible digital citizenship and open discussion about online behavior. And again, delaying access to smartphones and social media use until children can handle the pressure of online interaction. So the research suggests no smartphones before high school and no social media before 16. And this just came out. So again, if your kid already has a smartphone and they have social media, being mindful and understanding that, you still have control. You still have the ability to support him and teach him and limit their exposure. So I'm just going to click on some of the resources right here. This is also a great resource. This was created actually in Australia, but it's a great anti-bullying model for students to understand. So like, number one, think of like your hand, the high five. So ignore, talk friendly, walk away, talk firmly, report. And it gives you really like, how does ignoring look like? How does talking friendly look like? Walking away, talking firmly. And if you see, teaching students to stand tall, head up, mouth closed, look confident, use eye contact. So it really has strategies that can be supportive of elementary through high school students. Report. And dabbling is basically tattletelling in Australia. And then obviously common sense education has a lot of resources, and it breaks it into grade levels. So all of these are great resources that you as families can have access to. And, this piece, last but not least in importance, is really how do we work collaboratively with the schools? Again, we are here as local parents. You drop your kids off and you say, here, I entrust the most important thing to you for a period of 6 to 8 hours. And we do take this really seriously. So again, we want to partner with you to address the concerns. So the first contact would be talk to your teacher first. Talk to see about what is happening, because I guarantee you, the teacher understands your child better than anybody, because they have your child most of the day, especially for elementary school. And if in the middle school and the high school, if it's happening in a certain classroom, talk to the teacher in those classroom. Step number 2, escalate it to the principal or reach out to the counselor. And if the issue isn't resolved with the principal, it becomes a more serious concern, like ongoing harassment or physical threats. You can contact, you can always set up a meeting with them to make sure that, we're all on the same page of how things are being addressed, what supports have been provided, both to the victim, and the person who is bullying. We, just to make sure that everybody's in the same page, we cannot, if we are talking about your child, we cannot give specific details about other students, but we can talk about, like, in general, how we address concerns at the school and what we do and the holistic approach that we take when addressing any kind of conflict, bullying, and of course, harassment. And, I do want to mention again that our practices always align with California Educational Code. Here are more resources that will be available in the PowerPoint presentation that was dropped. Right there, they're just linked to it. Okay, any questions? I see some stuff that was put here.
We have a
Yes,
high
so,
Mhm.
so yeah, I see concerns are being put in the chat. So those are things that you want to set up a time to meet with the counselor, with the administrator, especially if it's an ongoing issue, where things are happening. So I see over here concerned there's bullying and harassment happening in the boys' restroom. Again, this is like where you talk to the administrator and you say, can I please set up a meeting with you? This is my concern. This is what my son or my daughter has told me. This is when it's happening. And this is when I drop them off, and this is when I pick them up, and this is what they told me today. So that piece of documentation is really important to give an idea as to, like, where do you investigate it? If there's cameras that we're able to access, then we look at those recordings to see who was there, who was going into the bathroom, who was in the hallway, who came out. And we do a thorough investigation to make sure that we are providing the appropriate supports and consequences. Some of the things that schools do to ensure more supervision in the bathroom is that sometimes I've seen instances where they limit the number of students that go into the bathroom. There's an adult posted at the entrance of the bathroom. And obviously, if it's between periods, sometimes I've seen the reinforcement of bathroom passes, or even having a staff member that, walks the hallway during passing periods. So there's a lot of things that can be done. The question is, if we don't have the information and we don't understand exactly what is happening, we can't get to the root of the problem. And that's what Ms. Zavala, Ms. Townsend talked about. In order to appropriately address a behavior, we must understand the root so that it doesn't happen again.
And having a son at the high school, I know that our school counselors, they rotate through and check bathrooms, and that obviously is not solving all of the issues that are happening, but they are aware. So definitely I encourage what Dr. Velez was saying, to make an appointment with principal, or just voice your concern and email the school counselor, and they will respond to you.
Any other questions? Again, the resources are right there. We would love to get feedback, especially understanding, like, what kind of other parent trainings you would like to see in the future. And even if you need support one-on-one, we are here to help. Like, the school is here to support you and to work in partnership with you. We'll stay here for a couple minutes. I can stay here a little bit longer.
I see that we have a survey as well, right?
Yes. This short survey, it's very short. I'll drop the link in the chat if you, as well. And again, you can just put parent as your role, the most important role for a child's life. Parent, guardian. So Here's the other poll, and you can put this in the chat, and it's scale of 1 to 4, and I'm gonna add another piece to this question. I can identify the 3 components of bullying. And I sometimes forget about the 3 components. I have to go back and look at it.
So if you can just click one of the choices, like a multiple choice test, just so we can kind of gauge to know if and how the information was received tonight. Thank you.
And just as important is the survey, especially, I don't know, Dr. Velez, if there's a space where they can put other topics they'd like to learn about, but please let us know what other topics to bring to our virtual learning.
Yep, the last question will allow you to put that information. And the survey link was also dropped in the chat. Thank you so much for deciding to spend your evening with us. It is a privilege and an honor. So Natalia, again, yes. So the goal is really to stop those interactions. And definitely, I think it's something to bring up to the school. And if your student and knows who they are, like knows like the children that were involved, it is important for your student to also bring it up to the teacher, bring it up to an administrator, because there's so many things that happen in a school day. You know, there's so many kids and there's a couple adults that we may not catch everything. And that is why we want to partner with you and partner with your students to ensure that things like that are reported so that we can investigate it and address it immediately. Thank you, everyone.